Hey guys, welcome into this segment from our full-length The Onside Kick podcast. In order to get the full podcast, go down to the description, go to Blog Talk Radio / The Onside Kick to download the full thing. Enjoy, everybody. But Mark, we got to move on into our next topic, and we are going to be looking at the New York Football Giants and the big move, the big splash that they made early in the wee hours of the morning. As I was waking up today, I'm like, man, why is Brandon Marshall, what happened with Brandon Marshall? The ticker comes across on SportsCenter. I go, damn, I missed it. Went to my phone. What do I see? Brandon Marshall staying in New York, but he's going from the green and white over to the red, white, and blue of the New York Giants. And Mark, I am going to be frank. I am going to pass it right off to you. Okay. This 2-year deal for Brandon Marshall, does this make the Giants Super Bowl favorites this upcoming year?
I honestly am kind of convinced it does. The problem for the New York Football Giants last year really was that their Ben McAdoo offense was not as powerful as it was supposed to be. Their defense is one of the better defenses in the NFL. They gave up the second fewest points.
Well, they went out and spent cash money.
Yeah. So last year they did that, and this year they said, okay, how can we make this offense perform better? Boom, there it is. People were able to frustrate Odell. He still put up nearly, 1,400 yards, getting 10 touchdowns, but people were able to kind of stop him a little bit, and now you have two number ones.
Two number ones.
What are you going to do? Which guy do you cover? And I know that this comes up every now and then, which guy do you cover? But very legitimate. I mean, when Chicago had the second best scoring offense in the NFL, this was during the dark eras known as Mark Trestman, of Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall. It's because they had two number ones. And it was so effective that it was just nonstop scoring for this offense. When you move over to Ben McAdoo, who loves to throw the ball, Eli's throwing for over 4,000 yards. Now you give him yet another target. This was basically saying, what did we not do well last year? We didn't score enough points.
You know what's funny about this deal? Guess who else is Brandon Marshall in 2 years, 2019, will be a free agent. Guess who else will be a free agent that upcoming year or that offseason as well?
Who's the
Giants.
Odell?
Odell's got a club option for 2018, which, let's be honest, the Giants are going to take that. They'd be stupid to say, nah, we won't take that club option for 2018. So he's going to be on the roster next year. And then basically 2019, he could get franchise tag if they don't come up with a deal. But that's years down the line. The thing I think with this deal, why, to me, I'm in the same boat. I kind of want to say, you know what? Not Super Bowl Super Bears, Super Bowl Super Giants in this case.
Super Bowl Super Football Giants.
Super Football Giants. And the thing is, I look at their division alone. And really, to me, last year, although Dak Prescott was great, although Ezekiel Elliott was fantastic last year, who really had the Cowboys' number in that division? Who had their number? It was the Giants. And I know that Cowboy fans are going to get on my case. They're going to say, well, Ricky, the second game you could say was actually a game. It was a close 10-7 fought victory. That first one in D-Town was one of those, you know what, we lost by one. If I have to hear one more time that if Terrence West wouldn't have stepped out of, or if he would have stepped out of bounds, well, he didn't, and you lost. So that's all that matters. They were really the only team in the division that could beat the Dallas Cowboys. They were the only ones, they were the only ones that beat them twice. And really what became, to me, the unraveling for them is you don't even have to look at the entire season for what it was. Just look at the Green Bay Packer game that they played in the playoffs. When you look at Odell's numbers, 4 catches for 28 yards on 12 targets, not good enough. And when Odell Beckham is so frustrated in himself that he slammed his helmet, and didn't he fucking slam his head into a locker? And we were all like, whoa, Odell, don't go too crazy.
He's got some anger issues. I mean, that was the whole thing with kicking the net or whatever. The net
earlier in the season. But I look at that alone, and the Giants had to go, we need to get somebody, we need to get a veteran so that if this happens again, Eli's got someone to throw to.
And I think that one thing that a lot of people don't look to when they are talking about this offense now is Sterling Shepard. A big surprise coming out
into the slot.
Yeah, second round pick for the Giants last year. He's a rookie, like 700 yards, a little under, I believe.
Yep, 683.
And this was a really good surprise for the team. I mean, it's not like he puts up 1,000 yards or anything like that, but he puts up enough to where he's reliable, gets 8 touchdowns last year. He is a reliable weapon. 2 years ago, Donnell was really good, the tight end, and people were going crazy about him too. They're just kind of adding up these little weapons. Imagine if they go in the draft and they get Dalvin Cook. Or if they can get McCaffrey.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. With me right now, I talked about it last week when the Adrian Peterson thing happened, and I did my solo podcast. One of the teams that I didn't think wide receiver. For wide receiver, I was like, they can go out there and get an Alshon. I didn't think that they'd go and get a Brandon Marshall, kind of off the radar for me. But my big thing was go get that running back. Go get Adrian Peterson so that Eli can lean on that. And then it kind of shakes things up and maybe gets Odell a little bit of extra looks because you're loading the box trying to stuff for AP. But really, to me, this is a smarter move than that because we don't know the exact numbers because, of course, the league year hasn't started. We just know that it's a 2-year deal. But I want to say that whatever this deal is, it's a lot cheaper than Adrian Peterson would have been for the Giants.
Definitely.
And they can go out now in that first round and go get a running back if the right one's available.
And Brandon Marshall even himself said, I think he tweeted, that the New York Giants offer was one of the least amount of money he was offered, but he wanted to go somewhere where he'd win. Yeah, exactly.
It all comes down to
he hasn't even gotten to the playoffs yet in his career. He's played 4 different teams, hasn't gotten there yet.
Well, him and Jay came close, didn't they? Didn't him and Jay come close once to making the playoffs?
Yeah, they were close to making the playoffs, and then they had issues towards the end where they just missed it. But hasn't been there. Has not been there. So the other thing that I want to mention with the New York Giants, what their downfall is right now, offensive line. Offensive line is still bad. But at the same time, as much as we talked about Cook, McCaffrey, one of these running backs, they can pretty much draft all offensive linemen throughout the draft, and they're probably going to be pretty good at that because they need to get somebody they need to get people that will protect Eli, not let him get that pressure that he got last year where he makes all these dumb mistakes and he's throwing close, 16, 17 interceptions in the year. You can't have that. You can't have that at all. And that's going to be a downfall here. Plus the fact that the run game was bad. Yeah, the run game wasn't great because you don't have a real reliable number one.
Well, yeah, they have that committee, and I mean...
But also the offensive line isn't helping get you forward at all either.
Because right now I believe the number one running back on this roster is the Paul Perkins, who he led the team in carries and yards in the playoff game, but it was 30 yards for 10 carries. But the thing for me with this Giants team is, like you mentioned, they went out, they spent cash money on that defense last year. They said, you know what, we're going to go out, we're going to get this guy, we're going to get that guy. We're loading up the defensive side because coming in, they're like, you know what, we have our same offensive system with our offensive coach. Then the year happened. Phenomenal defense. We're the only teams because of that defense to beat the Wonder Boy in Dak Prescott. But then when they got to the playoffs, they noticed, if Odell Beckham's not there, it's funny how we don't win the game. So we need to go out and get somebody, and they did in Brandon Marshall. And the thing that's even more scary about this, you got Marshall on one side, stands tall at 6'4", and he's a receiver that Eli can say, boom, go get it. I'm throwing it up there, go get it, jump up for it. He's got a guy on the other side where, although he's only 5'11", plays like he's 6'4", with that jumping and that arm radius around him. Where basically, I want to say it was Sports Science like a year or two ago, did a kind of sports science on Odell, and the way he leaps and with his arms, he could catch it to where if he stood there and you threw it, it's the width of a like a garage in a backyard. That's the radius that he could catch the ball. because of how freakish of an athlete he is. So you got that on one side, that on the other, and then add the 5'10 Sterling Shepard, who's a little bit more in the weight department. He's closer to Odell, only 4 pounds different. I thought he was a lot thinner than Odell, but you put that in the slot, and you've got 3 wide receivers that I think this Giants team can really say, you know what, these are sound. Let's go get that. Let's go get that running back now.
Mm-hmm. Something that's interesting too. Now the New York Giants were 11-5 last year, so nothing to laugh about. 2 different games that they could have won. They were just one possession games. Redskins that lost 29-27, and then of course it was the Eagles. They lost 24-19. Just one possession games. You could argue, I mean, we're not trying to play the what if game, but you can argue that if they have a guy like Brandon Marshall, they can go to the other option, and they could potentially win that division, which will, remember, they beat Dallas twice. They would have won that division. And then you're looking at the New York Giants as the number 1 seed last year.
And that's why I kind of want to flip the conversation to this. I was scrolling through YouTube today, and I saw a YouTube video from Eagles superfan EDP445, and what he was saying in his video was basically now because of the Brandon Marshall to the Giants, the Eagles are fucked. Well, guess what? Yeah. Not just the Eagles, the Redskins are fucked too, because not only did the Giants get a good wide receiver, the Redskins lost both Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson.
And the quarterback doesn't want to be there.
And the Eagles haven't made a splash yet either. Now the Eagles, there's a lot of rumors.
Eagles have been trying.
There's a lot of rumors saying the best fit for them could be Alshon. If they get Alshon Jeffrey, that kind of changes things a little. But if I'm the Redskins and the Eagles, I look at this move by the Giants and I go, fuck, what do we do?
Can we switch divisions?
How do we compete in this division with how good the Cowboys were this year? Because let's be honest, I don't think the Cowboys slow up. Now, Dak Prescott and Zeke might have a slight sophomore slump, but I don't think it's going to be anything like, it's not going to be a night and day type of thing.
Yeah, people will catch up.
They're still going to be a playoff team, and then the Giants do this and add Brandon Marshall to an already phenomenal 11-5 team.
Another thing with that too, of course, with the Redskins, GM is going to be fired as well, potentially is the rumor now. So they have one.
Is that the guy who was at his grandmother's funeral that died like a month ago? I was hearing with you said Redskins, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a story, I heard this on last Friday, where it was for the Combine. They're like, oh, well, why isn't he there? Oh, he's at his grandma's funeral. And then people did some digging, and she died early February.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know he's going to get fired. And that's a great look for the Redskins. But you have 2 teams that, if you're someone like Alshon and you have offers to go various places, do you really want to go to Philadelphia now?
You got to bear down?
You got, not necessarily that he has to come back to Chicago, but you have a team in New York who has this high-powered offense and high-powered defense. You have the former number 1 seed of the Dallas Cowboys with this amazing offense and a pretty good defense. Do you really want to go play in Philadelphia and go against these two? You're probably not going to win the division.
I wouldn't. If I'm Alshon, I stay away, and that's the thing. I want to bring it back more to the Eagles and Redskins. How do you attract a free agent? Because the thing is, with the Redskins, of course they're going to find somebody to fill those slots. But if I'm the Redskins, I go, okay, how are we going to fill these 2 wide receiver spots? Because to me, I didn't think they were going to keep both Garçon and Deshaun Jackson.
But you thought they'd get one.
But to lose both of them, I'd be hitting the panic button if I was Washington. And this giant move just put it up to 1 million.
The one thing that both these teams have going for them is the good quarterbacks. The problem for the Redskins is that their good quarterback doesn't want to be there.
Might leave next year unless you trade him.
Yeah, and then at least for Carson Wentz in Philadelphia, he's not going anywhere. They like him and he likes them. So that's a happy situation. So the Philadelphia Eagles at least have something going for them. And they can point to that really strong run that they had and say, look what we did. Add you to the mix and we can go back and do it again.
Last thing I'm going to ask you, and this has to do with the Giants, just to end things out. We already asked, are they Super Bowl favorites for this upcoming year? Both you and me say at this point, yes. Based off the Brandon Marshall, put them in the Super Bowl favorites. Not like they're the number one choice to win it all.
They're in the list of consideration.
I would say definite top 5 team to win the Super Bowl.
For
this upcoming year, maybe even top 3.
Yeah, I'd put them in top 3.
I want to ask you this. As of right now, before anything changes, injuries happen, anything happens, at this point in the year, 9:34 Central Time on March 8th, do you think the Giants will win the NFC East next year over the Cowboys because of Brandon Marshall?
Yes.
How many games? By how many games? Give me a little more.
If I had to give a little prediction right now, I have the Dallas Cowboys at either 10-6 or 11-5. I would put the New York Giants probably 12-4.
So almost flipped.
Yeah,
almost completely flipped at 11-5 and 13-3. But you said 12-4.
I just think you look at the two teams. New York beat Dallas twice last year,
and now they got better.
They got better. Not that Dallas won't get better as well.
It got better.
Yeah, right. Not that Dallas won't get better as well, but Dallas is not as well-rounded as the New York Giants now are.
Yeah, I honestly think that right now, I would say the Giants are my NFC East favorites. I'll be honest, right now, they're my NFC favorite to go to the Super Bowl and possibly even win it. Like my top 3 Super Bowl favorites right now at this point, I would say the Patriots, just because they're the Patriots and they won it last year. The Giants, and then I'll throw the Cowboys or Falcons, but I'll probably pick the Cowboys just because we know the carousel of the NFC North. You win, or the NFC South, pardon me. You win the division, somebody else is winning it next year, and that first place team is most likely in the cellar. But anything else, anything that we missed on the Giants and Brandon Marshall before we move on into our last topic?
Draft Eli Manning in fantasy football next year.
Because he's going to have 2 great targets to throw.
He's got 2 great targets in the first year. Brandon Marshall's on a team. He always does really well.
Didn't you draft Eli this past year?
I draft Eli all the time.
Did you have Eli this past year?
I draft him all the time.
You had Jameis Winston too, I believe, didn't you? Didn't you have famous Jameis for a part of the year?
I think so. That sounds about right. I had Cam Newton too at one point, but that was via trade.
You had Dak, I think.
I did. I had Dak.
Because we did things differently where we had to draft a rookie.
I had 3 quarterbacks going into the year.
Remember how much I fought for Kevin White?
Yeah.
I wanted Kevin White, man. He was the guy that I really wanted, and I made a poor decision there. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know down in the comment section. Are the Giants now Super Bowl favorites now that they have Brandon Marshall on the roster? Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that segment from the onside kick. If you think the fun stops there, you're wrong, because click the video right over here. What are you thinking? Come on. Click it. It's going to go away. It's going to go away. Bye, everybody.